Hey guys, just waiting a couple more minutes for some people to jump on. CJ, Kathleen, how you guys doing?
Good. How about yourself?
Doing
Good,
good, good.
good. Crazy, crazy. So give me a couple of minutes. Oh, Jordan just jumped on too. And we'll do this very shortly, okay?
Very good.
Okay. Hey guys, how you guys doing?
Good.
Great. Great. I'm
Doing good, good.
gonna 1 second. Okay, so it's been an interesting week. I imagine I'll put them on mute real quick as more people try and jump on.
Doing good. How you doing?
I'm good, buddy. Oh, I got my cups. I appreciate it. So they were good. I had 2 of them. Thank you so much, Jordan and CJ. I appreciate you guys for that as well. Kathleen, I know you're out there, so hopefully you're all doing well. So let's talk a little bit about, as other people start joining on, this week's lesson. And so what I'm going to do is, from next week, we're going to integrate you guys with everybody else. So my other groups, and that will be 6 o'clock Mountain Time, and therefore going after from that point on. So 6 o'clock Mountain Time. So you guys know, starting next week, you'll have the one link and go from there. Hopefully everyone has a great week. I mean, it's been crazy for me, as you can imagine. As usual, did some pretty cool things going on this week. But you know, the one thing I want to talk about this week is literally habits and daily habits, and going from there. Habits define you and they make you what you want. Habits are very easy to break because we spoil ourselves and our ability to do that, right? In other words, we spoil ourselves because we want to make excuses, and therefore we don't continue to do our habits. And then you've read all the studies, how traditionally, you know, it takes 3 weeks to do a habit consistently, 6 weeks to kind of go from there. I believe that is true, but what happens with habits is as they get consistent, we get comfortable, and then we downward project and we break our own habits, right? That's that self-sabotage mode that we do. I think habits are the most important foundation of everything that you have. And I say that because as the foundation is working for you guys and you're trying to make it work, the reality is the habits have to make sense, and they have to be part of everyday life, right? So for example, Everyone knows that as a healthy habit, you wake up every morning, you're brushing your teeth, right? And at night you're supposed to brush your teeth and wash your face and do those things. So now it becomes almost a no-brainer when you're doing something, because it became an integral part of your life. The things that you need to do, you have to make it as integral where it's just like brushing your teeth, or it's just like washing your face. That's what's going to make the difference between success and failure in two areas, in your business and in your life, right? And if you understand those habits, then there's that accountability for those habits. I'll give you an example. Today at 5 o'clock, I'm supposed to have a call with the producer of American Idol that we're doing a TV show with in esports. My habit is, I know Thursday at 5 o'clock, I have these sessions. So I had to reschedule with them because my habit and my commitment is what it's supposed to be, right? And that is something that has to be consistent. When you do that in life, you're gonna do that in business. The hardest thing I think for a lot of people is they do it one way and definitely not the other. And that's where you have problems, right? In other words, you have great habits in business. You're accountable. You know, you have to turn this in by this time. You have to work with this partner. You have to do these certain things. But then when it gets down to home life, there's no balance, right? And that's because you're picking and choosing what matters to you as a habit. I'll give you an example. I work all day, I'm exhausted, I work all night, you know, always running around, always doing what I have to do. How I make social media part of my habit, because everyone says it's busy, is I realize that if I did it once a day, if not twice a day, then I've done my job. And the only time you'll never see me put on social media is either A, if I'm on a vacation, or B, I'm so jam-packed that I don't even have time to check my emails that day, right? But I make a habit of waking up extra early that day if I'm behind to make up for the time. Where people screw up is they put their habits and then they say, well, I'm gonna wait at 8 o'clock, and they know that they're behind on work and they still come in at 8 o'clock instead of doing it at 6 and hold themselves accountable. Accountability is what makes habits work. And the moment that you're being lazy and you're breaking yourself off of your habit, you need to be very honest with yourself, because if you have that personal growth will give you the wealth of knowledge to maintain your habits. And that's when you know if you're disciplining yourself. So during the course of the discussions and the mentorship sessions, as we're growing, as we're showing that, as we understand your habits, are you being honest with yourself when it comes to habits? And if you can't do that with me, who obviously is dedicating his time and doing what he has to do, you're not doing it with anybody else. And then you'll realize that you are the factor, or you are the problem that prohibits you from doing good habits and going from there. Now, with any habits, you should list your habits. So what I suggest for the next 7 days, and this is on our session, is I want you to write down your habits. And I want you to write, it doesn't have to be, detailed note, but daily habits that you have. And then I want you to write down the habits that you're missing, right? So inconsistent habits. It's just an honesty thing for you. You're going to realize the priorities of these habits. You're going to realize the priorities of these habits. You're going to realize why you should have these habits. You're going to realize why you should be part of these, these habits. These things all matter when it comes to what you're trying to do, because the habits will make or break you for greater things. Think about what I just said. If you can't work out every day, you're not going to compete in Mr. Olympia. Common sense. But people don't do that in business and life, right? If you know that you can't, you're a great basketball player, but you don't have habits to do what you have to do, you're not going to make the NBA. But we don't take that same process and that same mindset when we're doing life. Why? Because of our arrogance. That's why, right? Because we think and assume that we know more than others, and we can do others, and we can work the system. In fact, all of us, including myself, work the system. The system is we're spoiling ourselves with the habits, right? So today you come home, you worked a long day, it's your day to cook, but you're exhausted, and the wife is sitting there and she didn't work all day, and you're like, well, I'm exhausted, can you make it? But if that was a 4-year-old child, you would have made that dinner. Pick and choose, right? You can't spoil yourself because you had a exhausting day. Obviously, if it's physical, it's a whole different ballgame. But that's one thing I've learned as a man and as a business partner and a partner is, just because I'm off that day, just because I'm a certain way, does not negate or does not give me the pass to break my own habits, because what I'm doing is I'm actually devaluing myself, which I'll talk about later in the sessions, towards the person I committed myself to. So my habit again today is, my habit is to be on this call. I should have been on a call with the American Idol producer to do a TV show, but I didn't do it because my habit was I was going to do the Pandanomics, and so I had to reschedule the call with him. Right? It's not something I just say, it's what I practice. When you list your daily habits and what you're trying to do for 7 days, you're going to have two columns, a good habit and a bad habit column. What you need to do is you need to write very clearly what your good and bad habits are, organically. Don't BS yourself. Don't lie to yourself, because there's no growth if you lie to yourself, right? Being honest with yourself is pivotal in the role of growing yourself and having good habits, right? The other thing is, this will also make you realize a very important aspect of your habits: how much negativity and positivity you're putting in your life. Now think about what I just said. If your habit is to read 3 times a week, it's a positive thing because it's growth. If your habit is to watch documentaries or a show, that could be good or bad because you're decompressing, right? Everyone needs to decompress. If you're going to the gym 2-3 times a week, that is a good habit. What you're going to realize is that a lot of the restrictions that happen is because you're not consistent with your habits, right? And because you're not consistent with your habits, the end result is you go back to square one, because ego can be checked. You can be grateful for everything you have. But if you don't have that habit of consistency and performing at all levels, then there's no way in hell you're going to be able to consistently do great in everything that's there. Think about what I just said. This is a very positive and meaningful, impactful thing, because when you have good habits, that means you have good emotions. That makes you feel good. You're surrounded by people that make you feel good. You're not putting in bad habits that don't make you feel good. And oftentimes you're gonna realize that you have more bad habits than you do good habits. And that's an honest truth. And then when you realize that you spend that much time on these habits, that's when you drop yourself from that habit and try to find a way to work. These habits move into business, right? Because it's all about discipline at that point. So when you separate your habits and you start seeing, man, I do a lot of negative habits. I complain a lot. I nag a lot. I argue a lot. This is a habit of my time. You're going to realize that that's the core crux of your problems. And if you've already checked your ego and read the books I asked you to read, and if you already appreciate your perspective in life, you're going to realize that those two things, now combined with the friends and family associates that we talked about the previous week, and now the habit side of it, they actually all align. It's a growth phase. You're growing, right? But if you can't check your ego, then you have to go back to lesson 1, because you don't have a good habit to check your ego. That's a habit for me. Every single time I make a decision, every single time I try to do something, every single time I'm overwhelmed and exhausted, my habit says, David, this is what you signed up for, you gotta go. It's when you spoil yourself, it doesn't work. It's when the people around you sit there and say, man, just do it later. Man, just do it later. Just do it later. That's why the friends, family, associate, the week before, you see how they all start adding up to each other. You start realizing, man, if you were really my family, you wouldn't have me do a bad habit like miss on something that matters to me. It's your circle. That's your friend, families, associates. That's what lesson 3 was. And for those who haven't seen those lessons, you can go on the Facebook group that we're part of. So Avi, I know you're one of the guys who do that. And you can go back and you can read the first 3 lessons. You can go online to YouTube and see the first 3 lessons. And you can go on to, everything's there. It's your job to catch up and to have a good habit and learn it. But if you pick and part those pieces, it will be very, very difficult for you to understand the whole picture, because you're missing key parts that lead up to how to make $1 million and $10 million and do billion-dollar transactions. That's what I do. If there's anything that's specific that you want to do specifically for your business, I can do the one-on-one. I'll charge my rate. I don't know what my rate is yet. I'm working on that rate, or it might be yearly prescription. I haven't figured that part out, but I have to have that good habit, because when I'm charging $1,000 for consulting, I can't charge you $1,000 for consulting, and that wasn't what my commitment was, right? So it's something that's really in depth. That's a whole different story. But my habit is give what you can give out first, and if they need very specifics, now they're taking time, then the habit is then you charge and go from there, right? But I'm so committed to doing the right things. Does that make sense for everybody? Are there any questions about what I'm talking about with habit? No? All right. Here's the book. It's called Yugo, Y-U-G-O. Yugo is a car in the 80s. This is a very important book for your business. It's written by Jason Buick, V-U-I-C, right? What happens is when you're looking and you read this book, you will see what happens. That Lee Iacocca, the guy, the man among men in that world, couldn't put away his pride, tried to bring in Yugo, didn't think about the perspective, didn't think about the ability to do so, and turned around and epically failed. And you'll see that this is what happens when people have bad habits. So the assembly line workers created bad habits, which then set up the car to fail. Leadership is great, but if people have bad habits and you're not teaching them, and by showing them, which is why the Magic Kingdom goes all the way back to being the most important book you could read, the very first book, it will tell you, you will do as you act, and you will act as you say. That habit is important, right? That's why you read book 1. And then you realize that as you're trying to sit there and talk to someone, you realize that the reason the sim line didn't work is because the 5 love languages, which is book 2, you have not hit the opportunity, because the way I communicate with CJ is not the way I'm going to communicate with Josh, right? Those are different languages, right? And then when you're doing that, and you start going into the Yugo book, you're going to realize that because of those things, the habits set up a whole company to fail. You got to realize business and people around you are like little children. Mom and dad are the same way. When you do something, when you're working at something, when you understand something, what do people always do? What's the first thing that happens when you get in a fight? The person says, well, you don't do it this way. Default, right? I don't need to tell you, what fight you've been or not been in. I just know for a fact that's what human beings do, right? But if you break them with a habit where they can't say anything about you, you have done your job as a human being. Those habits transition into business. Josh will tell you, I probably work harder than anyone else that you can imagine, because I'm always working, right? I'm not sitting there and my team's grinding at 11:30 p.m. and I'm sitting at home, I'm going to bed and sleeping. I'm working just as hard, if not harder than them, because my habit is, if it's not done, it needs to get done, right? I don't spoil myself. If you want to scale and grow a company, how can you do it if you don't have the habit? If you don't have the good habit of researching and understanding. So a lot of you guys have talked to me about business, about being experts in your field, whether it's podcasts, restaurants, your future, gaming. A bad habit is missing every Thursday, because I'm just going to cut you off, right? That's a bad habit, because I'm doing it for free. I'm taking my time out of my day, losing my income to help grow and value people. That's a habit. So if you maintain the habit, you actually maintain order, because like I just said, I knew at 5 o'clock I had to be on the session, so I couldn't meet with the producer of American Idol. Can't have it. It becomes routine with you. And when you're trying to set this up to masses and appeal and get to that next level of business, scale times, the whole team will look at your habits. So this book talks about how great and genius Lee Iacocca was, how amazing things he did, but because they weren't paying attention to the habits, a whole car company failed miserably under one of the greatest leaderships you can imagine. That's what happens. That's why some guys, they can't recreate the model and do 2 in a row, because you look at Elon Musk. When he did PayPal, he sold for $120 million, and he joined Tesla. And then from Tesla, he did his X brand that's going into space. The guy looks just as tired as he did before, right? The guy is putting the same amount of hours. He's using the same habits to push and promote the brand. And if he can't get the car company down, what does he do? He promised Model 3 cars. He couldn't get it going. He couldn't hit the production. So his habit is to be a salesman and promote himself. So he takes the car and he takes it to space. You all remember that clip somewhere? What did he do? He had a good habit of adjusting the bad things that happen, the bad habits that exist, right? The production didn't work for a billion freaking reasons. But for the first time in history, the insight is simple. This gentleman was able to pull off Houdini in the sense where literally his stock prices went up. That was what they did, and that was the value of what he has to do. So habits are literally going to make and break you. Look, if you can't figure out the habit part of it and you don't have the habits of doing this, you're never going to succeed, because the reality is you don't care to. There's no habits that are there, right? That I can go on and on and on about how habits work and why they're important. And then you're going to prioritize the habits that matter to you, because when you write that list and you go positive and negative, you're literally going to see what things that you're doing are positive and negative, okay? So that's one thing, the habit side. Are there any questions about that?
How do you spell the book?
It's Y, I'll type it for you guys. Y-U-G-O, Jason. Okay, it's right there on the bottom. But remember, I hate reading. So if I give you something to read, it actually makes sense, because I hate reading. Like you can't get me to read anything unless it's really, really good. So this will teach you, but you're really going to see when you're watching this, how the 5, love languages matter, how ego matter, how perspective matters, how habits matter. Everything I teach leads up to a point of success. And you're going to see that that's the bad habit, right? That's what you're doing. Avi, are you riding a bike?
Oh, yes, sir, I am. I'm multitasking right now.
I love it. I love it. Oh, my bad, dude. That's a good habit, right? Because I have one girl on my other session, Daisy. She's like, one day she's running on the treadmill and she's listening to podcasts and videos off. The next day she's shopping at Costco. The other day she's taking her break during lunch. Those are habits. The habit is I have to make the session. So with Daisy, I'm like, what do you need from me, Daisy? She's 18 years old. It's not an age thing. She's from El Paso. It's I care to get it done type of thing. It's a habit, right? So that's what it is. Great, you're doing that, Avi. Are there any other questions on the habit side of things? If you don't know, you should ask, because that means someone else probably doesn't understand it either. Nope. One second.
I'm good.
Where'd you send it to, Anna? Just came in. Okay, great. I'm going to talk about something else that we didn't get to talk about last week, but I'm going to bring it up. So give me 2 seconds. I will tell you what it is. There we go. Is this 3 or 4? I got it. Thank you so much. So I'm going to pull this up for you guys. So this, I'm going to show you guys. Let me know when you guys can see the screen. I'll lead into it and I'm going to have this discussion. The other lesson that we didn't do last week, but we're going to do this week, is life goals and plans, right? Let's talk about it. What are your real life goals and plans? What are you really trying to do, right? Do you see lesson 3, life goals and plans? Everybody on your screen?
It was there and
Yeah,
then,
yeah, it was there for a second.
All
Yeah.
right, one more second. What about now?
yep.
Okay, so don't read it, listen, and then we'll get back to it. So I want to show you what this is, okay? And then I'm gonna pull it up. I'm gonna stop again. An important part of what you're doing, besides trying to figure out how to work Zoom, even though I'm on Zoom 7 times a day, is literally understanding what your life goals and lessons are. So the exact thing is you're going to focus on your goals and plans for the future, right? This is very important. If you check your ego and you have your perspective, understanding your life goals and plans are really going to make or break you. And let me tell you what it is. Life goals aren't plans of, I'm going to make a ton of money and I'm going to take care of my mom and dad. That's everyone's life goals and plans. That's not specific enough. If you don't know where you're going, how can you expect to get there? Right? That's a big question that a lot of people have. So what ends up happening is the book that's there is called The 48 Laws of Power. I know you've heard of it. Don't read just the quotes, read the lessons. And I'm going to tell you one error that I made that I learned from 48 Laws of Power that really defined my future and changed my life goals and plans. I'll get to that in a second. It's not important to know exactly where you're going to be in the future, but the path that will alter it in some way. Everybody here, young or old, we all know this. Our paths have changed year to year, week to week, month to month. Our paths changed from high school to college, right? College to the real world, we live in the military, real world. As age changes, as COVID happens, our paths have changed, right? And the one hard part for everyone else is you can't just let that go. It's like, how is that possible this is going to happen? This was my goal. And so your ego is so dead set on trying to get that going that you end up hurting yourself. That's why your habit is an issue. And when you hurt yourself, then your perspective starts becoming an issue because you start sitting there and saying, well, it didn't happen. And you start thinking negatively. Does that happen to everybody here? Absolutely, it's happened to everybody. It happens to me, right? But what happens is when you realize what you want to do, at the end of the day, who do you want to be for your kids and your grandkids? What is your ultimate legacy going to be? That's the question. So when you do your life goals and plans, where a lot of people screw up, and I'm going to show you just a very, very simple way that we did it. Do you see the screen? This is homework, right? We make everyone write in a column, business, personal, and mental health. You see how the column is? And in that column, you're forced to write for each of these columns a 1, 3, 5, and legacy chart. Okay, let me tell you what this means. So for example, for business, in 1 year, I'm going to be here. In 3 years, I'm going to be here. In 5 years, I'm going to be here. And when I die, this is going to be my legacy in business. Same thing, personal. In 1 year, I'm going to be here in my personal life. Doesn't matter what it is, friends, family, loved ones, relationships, this matters, your personal life. In 3 years, I plan on being here. So for me, 1 year is I'm going to get married. David's 3 years is I'm going to have 2 children. In 5 years, hopefully I'll still have my hair, which I should, but I'll be very happy. And my legacy is I'm going to be a good dad, right? That's my personal, right? And the most important part, your mental health. Where do you want to be in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years of legacy? My legacy is I want to repair my relationship with my father and my mother, and I want to be the greatest son that I could possibly be to them. In 1 year's time, what can I really do and help them out, right? That's personal. On the mental health side is, I want to be happy in a year. I want to fix these problems that make me happy. In 3 years, I want to be where I am mentally, where I can sit there and just accept certain things that are going to happen In 5 years, I have full acceptance and control of my life. And my legacy is I'm teaching this. Here's where it gets tricky. You're going to realize that the three of these don't work together. You're going to realize that maybe your 5-year business plan screws with your 1-year business plan. You're going to realize that your 3-year business plan will screw with your 1-year mental health plan. You're going to realize that the legacy outside of I'm going to make tons of money and and blah, 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 is not the legacy you want to leave for your kids, because your current path is a path of destruction. And you're going to realize that if you want to have a balanced life and be happy, your 1, 3, 5 on legacy is so integral that you're going to start making these adjustments so that all three matter. People fail because they think when you talk to me in business that all I'm going to do is talk about business and that's all it's going to be, and I'm teaching how to make money and things of that. But that's not what it is. I can teach you to make as much money as you want. You can pay me $10,000 and literally I can teach you how to flip that to become 100 grand very quickly. But if you're unhappy and you're blowing your money and you have a big ego and you're not helping the people that you love, I've done you a disservice as a human being, right? You have to truly be able to give and be happy. And like I said, my legacy, as I'm sitting on this call, you know, it's business, but my personal legacy is Pandanomics and Team Panda becomes a global phenomenon, right? So I can't do that if I'm sitting there trying to be with the American Idol guy. That might be my 1-year business plan, but it screws my legacy because I miss calls. You understand what I'm saying? And that comes from the habit. When you do this, it is so meaningful and impactful, and it will literally change your path. And so when I give you these lists of things to do in these books, the book will help you because the 40 Laws of Power is so quintessential. It will teach you lessons. If a book in business and life has stood through the test of time, that's because it's a good book. But I don't agree with everything in the book. That's the thing. I don't agree with everything in the book. But it's your awareness that how much of that was ego, how much of that was perspective, how much of that is going to mess with your legacy, and that's how you can grow and develop, right? And start assimilating what's important to you in life, right? That's what matters. I'm going to tell you a story about the book and how it helped me out. I was involved in a company that literally was a huge company in the industry. Now, I can't even say what it was because you'll find out who I'm talking about. And I played a pivotal role. I played a vice president CFO role. When I first started working there, what I realized about myself and my self-awareness, checked through my ego, is I do know a little bit of everything. That's why my audience is so wide, right? I've had the opportunities and the blessings to know about business, a little bit about sports, a little bit about podcasts, a little bit about oil and gas, a little bit about real estate, a little bit of everything. And I've been able to perform and do these businesses through benchmarks, whether it's through Deloitte or other big companies, right? And that's proven that I have the case studies and ability to do so. So what happens is I join this new company and you talk about legacy. And this company, I'll say it, is in the crypto space. So knowing that crypto is a weird thing, some people think it's a scam, some people don't. The government hasn't figured it out. They haven't done what they had to do. You know, they're still trying to figure it out. I took a job for less money to learn an industry that I wanted to learn, and I moved part-time to Austin. So I have a home in Phoenix, I have a home in El Paso, I have a home in Austin, and I'm going back and forth, and I'm trying to balance out my 135 legacy. When I'm sitting there and I'm going through everything that's happening, crypto's a very tricky thing because there are a lot of really rotten human beings in that industry. In fact, in any industry, there's a lot of rotten human beings. And my boss at the time, he was really, really good. He was cool. He didn't really have, you know, it wasn't like he had a giant house or a giant office. He had a nice car, but his ideas, his theories were great. And he always needed someone like me to push out the branding and the information, right? So what happens is we start building this company. There's a legacy part when it comes to business. I get 10% of any money I bring in. Now think about what I just told you. I get 10%. So if I raise $10 million, I get $1 million. That's part of it in addition to my salary. When I think about my legacy, there were a couple of friends of mine like, yo, I'll put in $1 million bucks. Do you think we'll make money in 6 months? The way that our company was projecting and moving and the way the crypto world was going, it was like this. That's when you guys were online and everyone was talking about crypto. Everyone's talking about crypto and everyone talked about Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is at $19,000. You don't even know anything about Bitcoin. You just need to know that it was at $19,000, correct? Everyone remembers that. And everyone was talking about it and how great it was and how amazing it was and why it mattered and why it was there. And what happened to most people? You were buying into the hype, right? Like I would buy into the hype. And it was very easy to manipulate the situation because they trust me. Bring in that million, 100 grand that goes to my family. And when we started raising 10 million and 20 million and 30 million, that's $3 million to my family. When I thought about my legacy, because I wasn't 100% sure, no matter even though trending is there, that's my ego. 2 months from $5 was the coin value, all the way up to $67. And I'm the man, and everyone's high-fiving me, and Snoop Dogg's hanging out with me, and Ray J's hanging out with me, and all the cool guys are there, and all the nice cars, and we're all aligned. You could see this big party, and Snoop is playing at a private event for us. Ego gets tested. Your character now gets tested. And when you're hot to trot, when everything's going great, I am more careful. I work harder. Because I realize that's when people screw up their edge, because their ego gets in place. They're like, oh, I don't care. That's why there's athletes that do so great 1 year, sign a big contract, and then go completely fall off the picture. Their egos, they lost themselves. And we've seen it time and time again, right? Antonio Brown's a simple example. Great guy, all of a sudden, whatever his reasoning was, turned around and it became what it became. So as I'm doing the legacy side of this business, I realized that if I take this money, and even though I'm pretty sure it's going to do great, if it fails, it will tarnish my legacy. Now I want to ask you guys a question. You don't have to answer it, but be honest with yourself. $3 million in profit to take your family to go to the next thing, but screwing people over, is that the right thing to do? The answer is no. Will most people do it? The answer is yes. I don't talk about things that don't happen. I didn't take the money because I said to him, and I wrote all the negative things that happened. I said, watch this on Netflix, do this here, do that here. Here's how it can fail. Here's how you can read it. Here's what it should be. I gave him everything. I didn't just try to sell the pitch. I tried to sell the risk, because at the end of the day, you're a big boy and you can figure out if it's going to work or not, regardless of money, regardless of the commission. What do you think happens, guys? February, we have another big party. A lot of big names show up. Crypto prices are dropping in and out. It's fluctuating. Bitcoin went from 19,000, drops down to 12,000. And then, as this is happening, I am reaching deeper into my network and I'm bringing more people in to help the ecosphere, to do the right things. And then all of a sudden, the SEC sends a letter saying they're investigating every single cryptocurrency company that went to ICO, including my company. And because I'm the CFO and vice president, who else are they looking into? Now, I have been scared in my life. I have been stabbed. A lot of things have happened to me. I will tell you this right now. There is nothing more scarier than the SEC. I have never in my life was so scared. And then I was in an industry where there were no attorneys that really understood it, but wanted $50,000 fees to keep me out of jail. Now think about what I just said. because I didn't understand the landscape and they didn't understand it. Their legacies to me was they were jerks and they're trying to take advantage of me, even though they didn't understand it. Whereas I, as a business, if I can't do it, I just can't do it. I'm sorry, it's not going to work. So we go through this whole process. I work at the company. The company money starts to dip a little bit. And in July, I exit the company with no salary, but I'm still working for 6 months. And it's IOUs because I had a responsibility to everyone that put money, including myself, into the company. Now, when December rolls around, my attorney reads what I said. And this is why all things matter towards legacy. He said, David, you are the cleanest person I've ever met in my life. Every single time you sat there and someone had asked you about crypto, you told them what the risks were, what not to do, not to put in all their money. You told them the right thing. And David, you could have taken that money, but had I taken that money and didn't say that stuff, I'd be in jail right now. You see, you never know what's going to happen. When the ultimate part of it, when millions of dollars are in your face, I take a bigger step back and I reassess, I think about everything before I move forward, because people make decisions based on pizzazz. I want what that person wants. In business and in life, the reason that most people get taken advantage of is because you're greedy. And you know that it probably doesn't make any sense, but because of your greed, you go from there. When I present my products and my brands, first off, I don't even present to anyone in my network, in the Pandanomics network. I don't talk about it. They come to me and I'm like, I gotta be honest with you, I don't feel like you're ready for this type of investment. That's not because I'm trying to be a jerk. It's because I don't want to lose my legacy with you and Pandanomics. Think about what I just said. That was the same thing when I did the crypto side of things. But because I didn't take that $3, $4, $5 million extra, I'm not in jail. In fact, not only am I not in jail, we were one of 5% of the companies, 5% in the whole US that had literally no fines and no problems and continue to move forward. But if I didn't think about my legacy at that very, very point in time, I would have lost. Now here's the kicker. After doing all of that, keeping the company out of trouble, raising the funds, dipping into my network, you know what the CEO of the company did? He sued me. Yeah, that's right. He didn't just sue me for the commissions that I made. He didn't sue me. He sued me for the salaries. He would give me bonus gifts, like a bag, a watch, whatever. And he had the balls to add that on to the lawsuit. I'll make it worse for you guys. I was dying when that happened because the whole company worked because of me, my connections. Yours idea, but I'm the one who helped push it through. Now, half my friends disappeared. My friends disappeared. And I said, look, it wasn't like we put a gun to your head. Clearly, the SEC didn't think I did anything wrong. Clearly, it was the same message to everyone else. You're just being a bitter Betty. That's why the friends, family, associates column is such an important role, because what you start realizing is they weren't really my friends. They're my friends for the ride, right? So as you all become more successful, they're there for the ride. They're not there for you. And after I got sued from him, that wasn't the worst part. The worst part is I didn't get served. He some way, somehow was able to pull off a default summary judgment against me for the $180,000. So not only did I not win, not only did that happen, so now I have to go back in court and fight it because what he did was wrong and it wasn't there. I'm winning the case. That's human beings. And this is why I can sit there and tell you how positive I am. Because most human beings, after what I just told you, would be the bitterest, biggest assholes in the world and would not do something like this for free. So when I tell you that you can overcome anything and still stay true to your core, this is what I'm talking about. This isn't some theory I make up or something that I haven't gone through. I can legitimately tell you what happened. And if I can do it with my background, and y'all know what my background is, there's no reason you can't do it. You cannot allow the world to beat you up and change who you are. You cannot allow your friends, your family, your loved ones to change who you are. Fundamentally, your core is good, and therefore you should fundamentally always be good, which is why the habits are so important, because you're going to realize your habits are not bad because you have necessarily always bad habits. The people around you are giving you bad habits to have. Friends, family, associates. You see how everything now comes entwined? And when you hit that and you feel like total, I'm going to say the word shit, bad about everything that's happening, you're going to go back and you look at your perspective. Well, A, B, C, D, and E left me, but I still have Avi, Joshua, Christian, Kathleen, CJ, and Jordan. Perspective. You see how they all intertwine? Let me tell you what the lesson learned was. Had I read the 48 Laws of Power ahead of time, I outshined the master. The book goes like this. Some guy, can't even remember the name, some big old emperor, wanted his number 2 to throw him the biggest party he could. The guy who had the biggest party, his number 2, went all ends of the earth to invite the biggest dignitaries, the biggest and brightest people, the most biggest and brilliant elephants, a big party, and it was for just him. What was the intentions? They were good? Yes. It was with Nero. This was Nero. When it was done, after this extravagant party, they threw this guy into jail. It was done. Does it sound similar to, metaphorically, to what I dealt with? I outshined the master. I'll tell you where the turning point was. When I first started that company, I'm gonna tell you guys this, I have a bunch of cars. I have 2 Lamborghinis. I got your auto and I have a Huracan. The first day at work, not because I wanted to, because that was the only car I had in Austin, I just purchased it. I drove my Huracan to work. Do you know where I should have realized what was going on? When 2 months later, he traded in his BMW i8 to get an Aventador. I should have realized that right then and there. But because he blinded me with gifts and trinkets and opportunities, I, even at my age, even at my experience, got blind. And even though I say true to myself, I didn't put together that's what he was trying to do. When we were trying to put together deals with big people, he would utilize everyone I can, but when it came to the press, I give my team their just dues and say that they've done this and done that. He never said that. I was never included in any of these interviews and presses, even though I was going to put it together. And it wasn't I needed validation, but everybody wants to feel like once in a while, can we talk about how great I'm doing? And the kicker came in after he got that. He bought himself a Rolls, he bought himself a limo, a couple of cars. And when I took the break from him, that 6 months I didn't take the job, I traded in one of my cars. I got a Rolls Royce. You know what this guy does? He calls me and flips the switch and says, a lot of the shareholders are really upset that you bought a Rolls. I was like, man, I haven't been, I said, first off, I haven't taken a share from you. Your company owes me money for 6 months. Secondly, what I bought with that car was on my own, had nothing to do with you or the shareholders. And nothing to do with that. Nothing at all, okay? And what ended up happening was, as that was happening, it got him bitter. Think about it. He's doing this, trying to compete. He started selling all his cars. And me, because of my other business, I bought another car. Look how petty that was. Outshined the master. And a month later, he dropped a lawsuit. Ironically, a week later, after we had no problems with the SEC. Look how long he played that hand to do that. So when I tell you to read the 48 Laws of Power, or the 5 Love Languages, or the Magic Kingdom, or the Yugo, go read it. I'm not telling you because I'm bored or I'm trying to be a teacher. I'm telling you because they were so meaningful and impact. Listen, if you guys can't do the first 4 lessons and understand and write your list, there's no way in hell you ever learn how to make millions of dollars from me, because the reality is you can't even put the basic work in. And if you're looking for me to invest or grow your brand, work from there, I'm definitely not going to do it, because you can't even come for free sessions that I charge money to. If you go to SMU right now, that's how I met Kathleen, and you go put in what I'm going to charge to be in a 6-week course, $6,000, $1,000 a freaking week. And that's me taking a huge discount. That's what I'm trying to talk about. Where people fell with me, when they talk about their legacies, is our legacies don't align. So I don't want to deal with you. Our 135s don't align. I don't want to deal with you. But the one thing I can teach you guys is, no matter what your circumstances, no matter how bitter think about my situation, how bitter would you have been? It eats me to this day because it broke my heart. Because I loved this person. Because I worked and sacrificed. There are people out there in this world, no matter what you do, you're never going to be enough. And there will be leaders in many, many businesses, when you're applying for a job, when you're working, friends, when you're trying to meet a significant other and their best friend is the one jawing on why you're a bad guy, because they're the masters of that universe and you're coming in and outshining. So what it does is it teaches you how to slow play to eventually never outshine the master, but to basically be right underneath it and make it work. That's how you do it. That's the value. All right, guys, we got 5 minutes of questions. We can do 1 each. Please keep it to a quick question. Obviously, if you have any questions, you can ask me. Are there any questions?
No.
Just keep being great. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you. Appreciate that. What about you, Jordan? I know you were going to say something.
Yeah, like, I mean, okay, well, I guess a good question for me is, how often, do you find yourself, reevaluating your good habits, bad habits, this personal mental health, all that stuff? I mean, I'm sure that's an organic list for you. So how often do you revisit that yourself?
Every day. Every day. I show up to, I come every Thursday for this, outside of trying to help everyone else. It keeps me accountable, man. That's why you're here. It's accountability, right? Whatever your end goal is with me, whatever it is, you're not going to impress me if you're not accountable here. I won't do anything with you. If you can't even do this, there's no way you can do anything else, right? I'm giving. Like, literally, I'm just giving. I'm not asking for anything, just to show up. Every single day, every decision I make, doesn't matter what time it is, but it holds me accountable. When I do it every day, it checks my freaking ego every day. It makes me appreciate my perspective when I'm exhausted. And if I look exhausted, dude, I'm exhausted. I am dead tired at this point. But I committed to it. My habit is to get it done. So anything I tell you guys is something I don't do, something you do all the time. So I do it every single day. Eventually, it becomes a very good habit of mine. And then organically, that's why I said, like, brushing your teeth, right? As a little kid, brush your teeth, and now you wake up, you go brush your teeth, right? That's what happens. So me, subconsciously, I'm rethinking everything and thinking my perspectives. And like, they'll tell you something bad happens, I go, mother, I get upset. I'm a human being. And then 20 minutes later, I'm over it. Why? Because it could always be much more worse. It has to balance. That's the way life works. So I do it every time and every day, man. CJ, do you have a question? I can't hear you, my man.
I said I do not have a question, David.
Okay. Christian, do you have a question?
Not today. Just thank you for your time, man.
Of course. Kathleen, do you have a question?
No, I'm good. Thank you for having me on here.
Okay, awesome. And
I got
John,
a question.
who has a
My
question?
bad, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Avi.
Yeah, I was gonna be like, when's the next time you speak to our class? I think Professor Brown said you're gonna speak to us again.
We're actually doing a capstone project with your class for the semester.
Yeah, we have a SWOT analysis of your company due tomorrow actually in class. I was looking at it as the national.
Right, NACL. So that will be me doing that. But yes, I don't know when I'm speaking your class again. I just have to tell them, but whenever it is, I'll let you know.
For sure. All right. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, guys. Jordan, what were you gonna say, or CJ?
Yeah. Like real quick. So like, when did you realize that you're talking about the outshining the master? Because I mean, I'm trying to be humble here. I mean, I've in a couple of times in my life, I felt that same energy from people, and so so like, when did you realize, okay, that's what happened?
When I realized that,
Yeah.
every time I applied for a job somewhere, I wouldn't get hired, not because I didn't have the skill set, because I was smarter and better than the other guys that I was applying for. That includes Microsoft, by the way. 4 different divisions of Microsoft. The CVP of the company brings me in. They're already weirded out that the guy who wrote Office with Bill Gates and Paul Allen, who's one of my best friends, brings me in. And I'm applying for positions that, quite frankly, could outdo the senior VP's jobs, had better experiences, and people weren't bringing me on because of that reason. That's when I realized it. And I kept wondering, I was like, maybe I'm full of shit. Maybe I can't do this. Maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. Self-doubt starts kicking in. Sebastian also starts kicking in. And I started realizing that point in time, the issue wasn't that, man. The issue was I was outshining the master every single time. Not because I'm trying to be arrogant. That's just my resume. So I started deleting stuff to not show as great as I was. That's how I did it. But hopefully that helps you understand a little bit better of where we're at, what we're trying to do, and go from there.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, guys, I got to run to the other session. Please read the books. Try your best to do it. If you don't read it, they're audio books. I mean, listen to it. Go from there. But remember your legacy, the 135 legacy we're going to talk about next week. And let me know how that goes from you guys. But be honest with yourselves, all right? And remember, you've done a lot of great things. Don't let anyone else say any differently. All right? All right, bye, guys.